The recent launch slash mess that is Bioware's Anthem kind of inspired me to make this video. I loved Bioware just as much as the next guy. Growing up, I loved Mass Effect. That was I didn't buy a lot of games day one, but Mass Effect 2 and 3, I was there day one. Regardless, here we go. Games are maturing, and at this point, most people agree that games are art. But this is kind of a fairly recent realization for the mainstream, and that makes sense because consoles were like literally introduced and advertised, at least in North America, as just straight up toys. Nintendo made a point to emphasize the NES was a toy at launch.
Will you be the one to witness the birth of the incredible Nintendo Entertainment System? The one to play with Rob, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge. Will you be the first to raise the incredibly accurate Zapper and play games like Duck Hunt?
You also have to consider that just from the uninitiated eye, looking at pixel art and listening to chiptunes is harder to appreciate than looking at the visuals of, let's say, Red Dead Redemption 2, and the fact that you can literally now just orchestrate music and put straight orchestrated music into a game. It's much easier for the common person who's never played a game in their life to listen to a orchestrated piece of music that happens to be in a video game and call that art versus some chiptune where they'd say, oh, it's just a computer song. So games had to kind of mature with their audience. We went from taking games as toys, and as they were advertised as toys, children tended to buy them. As the children grew up with games, games had to mature, and slowly they became recognized as art. And there's kind of a microcosms of this, with Naughty Dog being the best example of a studio growing with its fans. You have Crash Bandicoot in the PlayStation 1 era, then you move on to kind of more teenage games in the early PS3 days with Nathan Drake's Uncharted. And as the end of the PS3 happens and the beginning of the PS4, you get much more mature games like Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us. And as time goes on, the same has happened for video games as a whole. So here we are, games are now art, and people who can appreciate art, being games, are looking to enjoy, well, artistic games. And who are we going to trust to look for these artistic experiences? Well, the studios that grew with us, that helped make gaming appear as art to mainstream audiences. And they let us down. Very recently, Fallout 76, Bioware's Anthem. We've been consistently let down again and again. But why? Why is this kind of shift happening, and why do we suddenly have to be more careful? I'm not going to blame it on microtransactions or loot boxes. I mean, that's definitely something that we could talk about, but that's not what this is about. Let's take a brief moment to pause and look at movies. They are more or less universally agreed to be art. Regardless of this fact, you see blatant summer popcorn entertainment, like Transformers.
I am directly below the enemy scrotum.
And cheesy, horrible horror movies at Halloween, like Slender Man movie. Most everyone agrees those are not good movies. They might be fun to watch, but they're not, quote, art. They're not high works. You're not going to see them on the top 250 on IMDb. Slender Man's going to pull in millions of teens looking to see their first PG-13 movie with their friends and scream in a theater. The movie isn't made to be art. It's made to get asses in chairs for as little money as possible. And the studios have to kind of walk a line between making these popcorn entertainment for the masses and expensive, financially less successful art pieces. But as time goes on, and the bigger a studio gets, the more incentive there is to make popcorn entertainment. And there is a micro crisis in Hollywood right now too, where you see a lot of remakes because they're safe It's a lot safer to put a remake or a recasting or a rehashing of a tried and true franchise out and do it with more explosions and better special effects than it is to go for a new artistic IP. And a lot of people would say, if you want to go see true, quote, art movies, people who are really into movies aren't going to tell you to go see the summer blockbusters. They're not going to, as fun as it might be to watch Captain Marvel, they would probably point you in the direction of indie movies to see true expressions of the medium, true value of cinematography, acting, color, sound, all coming together perfectly to convey messages, valued writing, true like art pieces. What makes movies art? They would point you towards indie studios. And this is kind of a cop-out, but at least in my opinion, the most popular quote indie studio, I say quote because it's pretty big in my mind, indie studio as of late is probably A24. My favorite movie of 2018 was, like, as a movie, like if I had to say the best movie as art of 2018, I would say Hereditary. That movie's fantastic. My girlfriend's favorite movie of 2017 and probably the last 5 years is Lady Bird. Eighth Grade is a great Bo Burnham movie. It Comes at Night, I can also highly recommend. All of these really value movies as movies, not as mindless, cheap entertainment that where you whitewash the cast so you can get the most people in spending the most amount of money. So let's go back to games. We're at the point now where games are huge. They're bigger than Hollywood. And more than just, quote, gamers play games. Almost everyone plays games. So we need our Transformers and our Slendermans. We need entertainment pieces that are going to cater to broad casual audiences. We need our summer flicks, basically. So we get our Call of Duties and our FIFAs. And they're not made to be art. They're made to be appealing. And, I mean, I guess this is fine. It's a necessary evil. It's a means to collecting funds. But these companies, Activision, EA, and Bethesda, are now in the position of making popcorn flicks. They make the Transformers and the Slendermans now. That's just where we are at. And if you think back, like way back, EA actually made some pretty bang-up games. And then there was that middle period around when Mass Effect started hitting its stride, where, yes, we were still getting games like Mass Effect, but we were also starting to get heavy microtransaction-based mobile games and FIFA Ultimate Teams. And now that EA is the mega giant that it is, we don't see any more, quote, art pieces anymore. It's all just mindless entertainment. I could say the same for Activision, and I'd say Bethesda is in this transitionary period at the moment. And that sucks because, like I said, as we grew with them, we gained, and they made video games appear as art to the mainstream. We put our trust in them. But we're at a point where they're letting us down. And Anthem may very well be considered good entertainment, but there's a reason it's not considered artful or masterclass in gaming in any way. So here we are. I mean, I'm basically saying it's time we have to let our childhood devs go. And that sucks. So where do we go now? Going back with movies, I would say indie studios is kind of where we have to go. If you want to get hyped for a game, if you want, quote, games as art, if you want to see the types of experiences that these studios used to put out, you have to look to indies now. Because the industry has matured to a point that we now have these big guys making their popcorn flicks. And if you want, and if you grew up with gaming as art and you want to go back to that, you should look at indies. Let's look at Celeste, amazing game, nominated for Game of the Year. Let's look at Stardew Valley, unbelievable, fun game. You can pour hundreds of hours into that. Let's look at Hollow Knight. I would say the next Bethesda game, you can be excited about it, but personally, I think it's like a fool me once, fool me twice. I will be very cautiously optimistic. just like I was with Anthem. I didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot stick. I wanted to watch, and if it had a truly successful launch, I would go in, and it did not. This is kind of how I feel with the next Bethesda game. I'm going to watch it. I am not going to invest myself emotionally in it. Hollow Knight, the sequel that's coming out, I would say go for it. I'd say that is a game that you should fully invest yourself in, because those developers are making the best game that they can, and they're making games as quote art. They are combining all of the aspects of games that make them true art. They're creating masterclass game design, masterclass gameplay, beautiful visuals combined with fluid gameplay and an amazing soundtrack. And that's great. They are making an A24 film. First parties also have a fairly solid vested interest in making these art pieces. And the main reason is they have the consoles. Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they are trying to sell you a box. And to back that box up, like, why should Chris the gamer buy the Nintendo box? Well, because Nintendo is going to make these exclusive art pieces. They're going to make the Zeldas and the Marios. The flip side of this is they're not perfect. They're also going to make the Animal Crossing Amiibo Fests, and they're also going to reuse the Zelda Twilight Princess engine for Link's crossbow training. But the fact remains, there is some merit to trusting first-party studios. And that's why I would say the same with Naughty Dog. Definitely trust Naughty Dog. There's a vested interest. Sony's given them a vested interest. So there's a reason Sony picked up Hideo Kojima, and I assume gave him a blank check to make Death Stranding. It's so that gamers who appreciate gaming as an art are going to want to go to PlayStation. Gamers who invest money in gaming and don't just buy one game a year, that being COD or that being FIFA, and buy some microtransactions, but gamers who, are going to buy the PS4 Pro and are going to want a true kind of art experience, they're going to go to Sony because they have Hideo Kojima and they have Death Stranding. And this is just kind of my weird knee-jerk reaction to all this happening. It's a weird time for games, and it's a shame that things are where they are, but the writing was on the wall. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. We are doing a giveaway, Steam code, mostly indie games actually. Every 10 subscribers, all you have to do is be subscribed, and we will hand out a game to a random subscriber. You can either hit me up in the comments if you have questions, or you can check out our channel page. We have a short video explaining everything, and the description is also elaborates pretty much on every question you could ever want. But let me know if you agree down below. Let me know if you're having fun with Anthem. Let me know, I don't know, what's your best example of game as art. That's all for me today, and I will catch you guys next time.